In the last video, remember we finished a series of digressions about history. Now, the narrator, Brás Cubas, goes back to his fixed ideas. After all, he used some of the historical characters there as examples of people who had fixed ideas. My idea was fixed as nothing comes to mind that is quite so fixed in this world. Perhaps the moon, perhaps the pyramids of Egypt, perhaps the late German diet. Let's go. Uh, let's take it easy at this time because there is an interesting irony here, as we would expect from Machado de Assis. You will realize that he has used things that as he progresses he uses three examples, right, of fixed things: the moon, the pyramids, and the German diet. By the way, German diet, we're not talking about eating sausages, all right? That's not what is the reference to here. um but as I'll tell you in a moment, but as he progresses, he chooses less and less fixed things. First, you have the moon. I don't know how many years according to science. Please, if you know, write here in the comments. The moon will survive because apparently the Earth is attracting the moon, something like that. So I think we just have some millions of years or something like that. So yes, very fixed. And then he uses the pyramids. Yes, the pyramids have been around for thousands and thousands of years, but you can imagine that much less than a million years, the pyramids will disappear. Maybe even with our efforts of preservation. Who knows, right? After the Third World War and then the Fourth World War, people won't even remember the pyramids anymore. There is this quote, a side note here, this quote by Einstein. He said that the Fourth World War would be fought with stones and sticks. Think about it. It's a not very optimistic sentence, but a very smart thing to say. The fourth, not the Third World War, will be with stick and stones, so the pyramids will disappear by then. And then he talks about the German diet. Let me just tell you, the German diet is something that it's a political thing. I'll tell you about it. But by the time, in the time Brás Cubas was writing, the German diet was already dead. So that's why he says the late, right? The late German diet, the deceased German diet. Okay, so here's the irony, right? So my idea was as fixed as the moon, that is not completely fixed, like the pyramids, that they're even less fixed, like the German diet that people have already forgotten. Not only the German diet is not around, people don't even know what is the German diet anymore. So let me read to you what is the German diet. It's the central deliberative assembly of the Holy Roman Empire. So remember that Germany, simplifying Germany's history a lot, right? We've talked about some videos ago about the unification of Germany, but some decades, centuries before, there was the German Holy Empire, right? That was what today is Germany, but much more than that. Okay, so the central deliberative assembly of the Holy Roman Empire, originating in the early Middle Ages from the king's councils of nobles and bishops. By the 12th century, it was already known. Sorry, it was known as, let's try, Reichstag. I believe that's uh, I wouldn't say close to the German pronunciation, but at least recognizable, maybe. But I'll try again. Reichstag, or imperial diet, much easier, right? Where princes, so think about it. It's like an assembly to decide things, like the vote, like a meeting of the Congress. Let's put it this way, right? So, and then where princes, ecclesiastical lords, and later representative of imperial cities met to advise the emperor and decide on laws, taxes, and wars. So, apparently, yes, the emperor had a lot of power, but there was this kind of, meeting that would help him, and of course, put some pressure as well. So, it's a kind of participation in the power as well. It became a permanent institution in the 15th century, with sessions held in various cities, notably Worms, Augsburg, and Regensburg. That is Regensburg. Right? The imperial diet of the Holy Roman Empire lasted until 1806, right? 1806, remember, Memórias Póstumas was released in 1881. Right? So even though Brás Cubas wrote his narrative, we can think that the historical scenario of his narrative is some years before the diet had already died. Right? So that's the irony there. So it lasted until 1806, when the empire was dissolved by Napoleon. A successor, the Federal Diet of the German Confederation, met in Frankfurt from 1815 to 1816. So there was Napoleon, and then we have a kind of diet again, but then we're going to call Federal Diet. But even this other diet has already died, right? Until replaced by the North German Confederation and then the modern German Reichstag. Hmm? Well, I believe even this last one has died. So it shows us very nicely how things are never fixed, right? And of course, you will understand much better as we progress in the reading here. Brás Cubas had a lot of fixed ideas, you know. He thought about being a politician. He thought about, about his love life and everything, because he's this kind of impulsive fellow. Everything was fixed forever for him. Well, it was fixed up to the moment it lasted, right? When it ended, then it wasn't fixed anymore. So he died in the process of pursuing this fixed idea. But I can guarantee you, knowing his personality, that if he had lived, I don't know, 10, 5, maybe 3 more years, he would have given up that idea as well. So this is what the irony stands for here. Okay, so my idea was fixed as nothing comes to mind that is quite so fixed in this world. Perhaps the moon, perhaps the pyramid of Egypt, perhaps the late German diet. The reader may pick the analogy that suits him the best. Go on, pick one. And don't get your nose out of joint just because we still haven't arrived at the narrative part of these memoirs. Okay, so basically, again, the narrator is talking to us. He's defending his digressions, and he's talking directly to an unsatisfied reader, saying, "Look, don't get your nose out of joint just because I haven't started and I'm here digression after digression." I have a little note here regarding this expression. By what I could gather, "get your nose out of joint" doesn't translate perfectly the original one in Portuguese. That is, let me, I put it here. That is torcer o nariz para. I'll tell you in a moment. Well, I'll read the note and um, tell me if you agree, right? Okay, so the idiom "get your nose out of joint," right? It means, so the meaning of this idiom is to become upset, offended, or annoyed annoyed, especially over something trivial. The image is of a nose being painfully dislocated. Example: do not get your nose out of joint if others are preferred before you. Right? Though similar in imagery, it differs from the Portuguese torcer o nariz. Torcer o nariz could be like this, right? Torcer o nariz, or could be like this, right? Why? uh, uh, differs from the Portuguese torcer o nariz, which means to show dislike or disapproval. See, it's it's I believe it's weaker than the English idiom, right? For example, in Portuguese, you can torcer o nariz to a food you don't like. I present to you a cake I made, and you have never eaten my cakes, but probably you would torcer o nariz, right? You'd look and say, I'll have to eat it. So a closer English rendering of torcer o nariz would be to turn one's nose up at something, right? As if saying, I'm not going to, you know, to go down and, eat this kind of stuff. I'm not going to, I don't know, or in a more informal style, to sniff at something. And then you have this image, like, right? So to sniff at something, or of course, to look down on something, right? You can look down on a person as well. So thus the English phrase points to feelings personally wronged, while the Portuguese one conveys disdain and rejection, right? So I guess when you say, like in the translation here, that the reader got his nose out of joint, he's offended because he's feeling full, right? He's being fooled by the narrator that has been giving us digression after digression. It's not like that, right? So it's much more like to sniff, to look down on. I'm not saying that the translator here was wrong, because Machado de Assis will say something about the nose in a moment, and he will play with the words. And if the translator hadn't translated like that, it wouldn't work, right? So, the lesser evil he had. So he lost the exact meaning there, but he gained the nice wordplay. Okay, so don't. Okay, narrative part of these memoirs. That is where we are headed. I do believe that you prefer anecdotes to meditations, like all the other readers or our comrades, and I believe you do well. You do well to prefer them. Well, that is where we are headed. Nevertheless, it should be said that this book is written unhurriedly. I'm not in a hurry. If you are, basically, the narrator is telling you, Brás Cubas is telling you, look, if you are in a hurry, and if you want me to get on with the story, if you want me to stop my digressions, I'm not in a hurry. Right? So almost is what I'm doing here with the videos, right? So I spend like 20 minutes in one video talking about translations of the Bible, another 20 minutes talking about one specific linguistic aspect. But I'm sorry, I have to do this way, right? I don't mean to be aggressive as the Brás Cubas is here. Not aggressive in the angry sense of the word, but in the ironic, even sarcastic sense of the word. But that's, let's take our time. Let's not worry about, getting the story on. After all, and this is real. If you're just interested in the story, so you would just go to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT to summarize the entire book. It would summarize the entire book to you in, I don't know, 5 minutes. You would spend 10 minutes to read it, and that's it. You would be able to tell everybody that you have read Memórias Póstumas, right? So that's not the point. Nevertheless, it should be said that this book is written unhurriedly, at the pace of a man no longer burdened by the brevity of the age. I have all the time in the world, more than all the time in the world, because I'm already out of this world. It is a supinely philosophical work, but of an inconstant philosophy. First austere, and just as quickly playful, one that neither edifies nor destroys, neither inflames nor chills, and is nevertheless more than a pastime and less than an apostolate. So let's start with that last image. I think it's the easiest one. Then we'll have to talk a little bit about supinely, because I also think there is a matter of translation there. So why apostolate? Apostolate, it means the office, mission, or working of an apostle. More broadly, any ministry, vocation, or mission undertaken for the spread of faith or an important cause, common in Christian context to describe the collective mission of the apostle and their successors. Right? So, but remember, he's saying, look, my philosophy is less than apostolate, meaning I'm not that eager to try to convince you, right? Then you could think, wow, so you're just relaxing. But then he said, where is it? Nevertheless, it's more than a pastime. All right. So I'm not here just saying whatever comes to my head, even though my digressions are that way. I'm affirming that I have a philosophy. So it's not just pastime. So it's more serious than that, but not as serious as to try to preach to you, to convince you. So probably he would be explaining something to you, and you would look at him and say, "No, I don't think it makes any sense." And say, "Oh yeah, maybe it doesn't." Right? It's like, you know. Well, then he said that his philosophy, is a supinely philosophical work. Okay, we should be very careful here, because this word comes from supinus in Latin. And what is supinus? Supinus is laying on the back, turned upward, right? And then because of that, inactive as well. So in English, when we say supinely, it means literally lying face upwards, right? So, for example, lying on the beach, right? With your sunglasses on, because the sun would be hitting, hitting on your face. Uh, all right. Figuratively, it means passively, apathetically, without resistance, as a dog, lying on the ground, showing you that it is going to obey you. Huh? Okay. Echoing the Latin sense of physical posture and moral weakness. In Portuguese, supinamente, right, can also mean the literal meaning. The literal meaning is exactly the same, lying on the back, face upward. But this is the point. In figurative use, it diverged a lot from English, because it is employed mainly as an intensifier, meaning utterly, absolutely, right? So, supinamente ignorante, for example, it would be utterly ignorant, right? While the connotation of passivity is rarely present. So in Portuguese, if I want to give this connotation of passivity, I would have to recall the person the image, like I would have to tell somebody that he was lying in the intellectual life, he was lying on the ground, supinely, and then bring the literal image, so I could work with the figurative meaning in English. Otherwise, first of all, in Portuguese, people don't use supinamente. It's a pretty rare word, but the meaning besides the literal meaning is utterly, right? So, while the connotation of passively is very present, or I've already told you that. Thus, the two cognates share the same root but differ in their figurative parts. English stresses passivity, Portuguese exaggeration. So, in English, you have they supinely yielded to the invader. So, they didn't do anything to fight the invader, right? In Portuguese, era supinamente tolo em suas decisões. He was extremely, utterly fool in his decisions. Well, I think I have said everything I wanted to say. So thank you very much for watching the video. If you have liked this video, please like it, right? Subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about it. And if you want to contribute to this work, you are more than welcomed.